Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend, and in today's video, we got ourselves another Go Collect Hottest Trending Comics for the week of June 26. Now, for those who don't know, Go Collect puts out weekly articles. They analyze the hottest selling comic books based on volume of sales and set an increase in movement in the market. So think of these 5 books as the most liquid this last week. And I gotta say, this is a really great list because it pays a big tribute to that of one of the late, great John Romita's. But before I get into it, if you guys could drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content, help support the channel doing those things, I would appreciate it. But let's get into this video here today. Of course, I'll put a link in the description, but I will break it down like I always do. And coming in here at the number 5 spot is a classic book, one of my personal favorite ASM covers. Of course, I'm talking about Amazing Spider-Man number 51, new to the list this week, now squeaking in there at the 93rd slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, it's the book that came out in 1967, written by Stan Lee and drawn by John Romita, that would feature the second appearance of the Kingpin and his first cover appearance. Now, of course, we all know that we recently got the Kingpin officially back in the MCU. He made his appearance in the Hawkeye show, played by Vincent D'Onofrio, coming off of his debut as the character in the Netflix Daredevil series. And we all know that he is going to be making a return as soon as the Echo show, which we are set to get out later on in November. And then we'll be having another role to play at some point next year when we get the Daredevil Born Again MCU TV series. And this right here is, in my opinion, one of the great Kingpin key comic books to own. Of course, ASM 50 is sort of the iconic book. Talk about, John Romita. Of course, we lost him just this other week, which is a big blow to the comic book market. He is such a legendary figure amongst all of these, Silver Age of comic books. And he drew some of the best Amazing Spider-Man comics, including 50 and this one right here, 51. And for my money, I really do love this one. I mean, I know that 50 is the iconic cover, but I love it when you have the appearance of the villain on the cover, or the first appearance of the, the character on the cover. Now, like I already mentioned, the reason why it is trending this list is out of respect to John Romita. Of course, anytime we lose a significant creator within the space, we always see, the respect purchase for a lot of their books, and that is why this one is making the list. But as we dig into the numbers, let's take a look at some of the values here. Census has it at 2,142 universal copies. Not a book that you often see graded. I mean, I feel like this is one that has gotten more popular in recent days. Obviously, everybody has been focused on ASM 50 all these years. 9.8s have 3 on the census, 9.6, 25. Haven't been too many recent sales at the high end, so let's go down here to the 9.2s. 74 on the census, fair market value 1850, 30-day moving 1680. And of course, like all Silver Age books, this one has had a big pullback. Of course, it was popular during the Hawkeye TV series, that we got late in 2022, had its correction, and now is, still sort of finding its floor, sitting well above its 2020 price, but currently right around this, $1,500 range, 1680 here, 1320 there. The book starts to drop off as you go down the grade scale. 9.0 selling around the $700 range, 8.0 selling around the $600 range. A lot of price compression here in the mid to low grade, where you can see a 4.5 selling for $150 and a 7.0 selling for $260. So for $100 more, you can upgrade by 2.5 grades. And then down here at the bottom, not always going to see this book slabbed at the low grade because it is in that later Silver Age run. But generally speaking, when you go into eBay looking for raw copies, typically they sell around that $60, $70, $80, maybe $100 range, depending on the deal and depending on the grade. All right, let's move on now to the 4th hottest trending comic of the week. And the 4th hottest trending comic of the week is one that bucks the trend a little bit of some of these other Romita books. But this one right here is Incredible Hulk number 449, new to the list this week, back on it, now sitting in the 85th slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this is the book that came out in 1997, written by Peter David, that would feature the first team appearance of the Thunderbolts. Now, as we all know, the Thunderbolts has been announced for the MCU. This has been a huge spec book, a huge book, a key book that everyone has been going after for many years. We are set to be getting the Thunderbolts film at the end of 2024, but this is definitely a book that has not been able to sustain its floor value, even in anticipation for the film. Of course, this was one that got especially hot, early in 2021 during Falcon and Winter Soldier, when it was already looking like the Thunderbolts were going to have some, role to play in the MCU. But here we are, 3 years removed from that show, where this book, still has yet to sort of hit its heyday, so to speak. So this is just one that, too long of a window, hasn't been able to maintain its floor value, and has hit a point to where now it's just selling right around that 2020 price, that 2019 price. And for the longest time before this, this was always, a key book that people liked, but was never a major key. So I think a lot of people now are looking at those prices, thinking to themselves, the market is really down. The hype around the movies is really down. Spec books are really down. I guess, I can take a flyer on this one and, pick up a 9.8 copy because it really isn't too bad. And speaking of those prices, let's dig into them right here and take a look at them. Census has it at 3,502 universal copies. 9/8 have 813, fair market value 475, although the 30-day moving is 378. So still a little bit pricey, when we're hitting that $4 figure range. But you can see that this is a book at one point was, above the $1,000 price point. So, it's basically dropped by 3x at this point. And it had that, momentary lift once again in the summer of 2022 once the Thunderbolts team was announced at San Diego Comic-Con. But, again, the macroeconomic pressure is going to drive this one down. And it'll be interesting to see where this book sits by the end of next year. I personally believe that, the economic environment will be a little bit better. And maybe by that time, the MCU will kind of get their wind again and get their sales going again. And the movies will start to be crowd pleasers once again. Then, of course, after the 9.8 level, book drops off tremendously. At the 9.6, it goes for 154, 9.4s at the 126. Modern book 1997, not going to see it slabbed to low grade, but when you go into eBay looking for raw copies, now you can find them being sold around that $50, $60, maybe $70 range, depending on the deal and depending on the grade. All right, let's move on now to the third hottest trending comic of the week. And the third hottest trending comic of the week is one that, again, is back to the Romita respect level. This one right here is Amazing Spider-Man number 41, new to the list this week, now sitting in the 63rd slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, it's the book that came out in 1966, written by Stan Lee, and like I said, drawn by John Romita, that would feature the first appearance of the Spider-Man villain known as the Rhino. Now, of course, this last week, we got the Kraven trailer. We got to see Aaron Tyler Johnson bringing the Kraven role to life. And at the end of the trailer, they hinted at the fact that maybe there's going to be some kind of Rhino character that Kraven is going to have to battle, which leads people to ASM 41 thinking that Rhino is going to be one of the villains. But it does make a lot of sense that they would have Rhino in that film. Of course, there's the Russia connection between all of these characters. There's a long history, a lot of interconnected periphery characters that connect Kraven to Rhino. So it makes a lot of sense that they're going to be bringing him into that. A lot of people had been speculating that Rhino was going to make a return in the Spider-Man No Way Home movie. Perhaps that's the reason why he didn't, was that they were saving Rhino for the Kraven film. And now this book right here, is one of the trending ones because, of course, even with the down market, people are still looking to pick up some key books whenever they see trailers from time to time. It doesn't take that many sales to have a lot of impact and movement in the market. And you also have the John Romita factor, which a lot of people are interested in picking this up for his artwork. But as we dig into the numbers for this one, let's take a look at some of the values here. Census has it at 3,835 universal copies. 9/8 have 3 in the census, although only recent sales for the high grade have been around the 9.4 level. 50 on the census, fair market value 5,750, 30-day moving 5,400. And again, like every chart we're going to see, peak price in 2021, pullback, and now it's kind of sitting still well above its 2020 price. Down here at the 8.0 range, $1,300 30-day moving, 7.5s dropped to 1,000, and then again a lot of price consolidation here in the mid-grade where you can see a 6.0 selling for 382 and a 3.5 selling for 330. So no matter what, it's going to cost you $300 to buy into this book. When you go onto eBay looking for raw copies, typically you can see them being sold around that $250 to $300 to maybe $400 range, depending on the deal and depending on the grade. All right, let's go on now to the second hottest trending comic of the week. And the second hottest trending comic of the week is one that is back on the trending list after the initial James Gunn announcement. Of course, the book we're talking about is Batman number 655, new to the list this week, now sitting in the 60th slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, it's the book that came out in 2006, written by Grant Morrison, that would feature the first appearance of the son of Bruce Wayne, Damian Wayne. Now, as you guys know, earlier this year, we had the James Gunn announcement for the DCEU, where he talked about all the projects that he had in plans for his rollout. And one of them was going to be the Brave and the Bold movie, which was basically going to be, effectively the Batman film that would incorporate the story of Damian Wayne as his, sort of Robin sidekick. And so a lot of people had been jumping on this one right here, 655, and I believe 656, the next issue, as sort of the cameo and full appearances for this character. And the book, of course, got really hot, and eventually it would sort of find its floor. But, with the recent release of the Flash movie and the Michael Keaton Batman return, and a lot of people have been talking about how the director of the Flash is going to be the director of the Brave and the Bold movie, I think that might have restored a little bit of interest back into this book, putting it back on the trending list, because now people are, really excited about what this movie may turn out to be. Now, the Flash movie has had, sort of mixed reviews, but I would say a lot of people did still like it, even though it's sort of tanked at the box office. But, a lot of people still think that the director did a pretty decent job, and maybe that is going to be a good thing for the Brave and the Bold film, making this book the second hottest trending comic of the week. And as we dig into the numbers for this one, let's take a look at some of the values here. Census has it at 2,349 universal copies. Got to think that that number is going to continue to trend up over the years. 9.8 has 1,116, fair market value 220, 30-day moving is 200. And you can see that this is a book that, definitely had a spike after the James Gunn announcement. And based on where it's selling now, it feels like it's definitely had a little bit of that pullback overall. And a lot of people now are thinking that, hey, where it's selling here at the $159 level at auction, or the $200 level, auction here, that's safe enough of an entry point for me. I'm willing to make that purchase and ride it out till we get the DCEU. 9.6 is selling at the $100 range. And then of course, down here at the bottom, not going to see it slabbed at the low grade, but when you go into eBay looking for raw copies, typically you see them being sold around that $40, $50, $75 range, depending on the deal and depending on the grade. All right, let's move on now to the hottest trending comic of the week. And the hottest trending comic of the week is, of course, another John Romita classic, The Amazing Spider-Man number 39, new to the list this week, now sitting in the 83rd slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, it's the book that came out in 1966, written by Stan Lee, and of course, drawn by John Romita. John Romita's first artwork, and also the reveal of Norman Osborn as the Green Goblin. Now, like I mentioned many times in this video already, we lost John Romita just a couple weeks ago, and a lot of people out there in the comic book market have been paying, respects to him, celebrating his artwork, celebrating a lot of the joy that he has brought the comic book market. And this one right here, to me, sort of feels like the, embodiment of, his collected works, his first artwork, one of the most iconic ASM covers, the classic Green Goblin, Norman Osborn reveal. And this book, of course, now becomes a special collector item for a lot of comic book fans, wanting to have, a piece of that John Romita history. And that, of course, makes sense as to why the book is hitting the trending charts this list. Anytime you have a passing of a celebrated creator in the comic book space, usually you do see a lot of movement in the market for a lot of their books. So it makes a lot of sense that ASM number 39, of course, would be hitting the trending list. But as we dig into the numbers for this one, let's take a look at some of the values here. Census has it at 3,158 universal copies, a pretty decent amount of books that are being graded at that level, simply due to the fact that, while this is a key book, it's really more of a creator key, which is, something that is interesting to talk about in its own right. One of the cool things about this book also is that this past week, we had at the Heritage Auction sale, a 9.8 did go up for auction. There's only 10 on the census, and it sold at the $52,800 level. That is the record price for this book at that grade. And you can definitely see that this is definitely a respect purchase, because this is a book that definitely shot up, in 2021 and 2022. And you would think that, a lot of other books have been correcting. You would think that this book would also correct, but I think somebody just wanted to have that 9.8 in their collection and was willing to pay, 20% above, the previous sale. 9.4 is selling here at the $4,800 range, after a little bit of a pullback. 8.5 selling at the $1,400 range. And then when you get to the 7.5 down to the 4.5, still a lot of consolidation where, 7.5s go for the $576 level and the 4.5 selling around the $300 price point. And then of course, down here at the bottom, not going to see it always slabbed at the low grade because it is a 1966 book. But when you go into eBay looking for raw copies, typically they sell around that $150 to $200 level, depending on the deal and depending on the grade. Anyways, that's all I got for this video. Those were Go Collect's hottest trending comics for the week. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys have any of these books? Drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content. See y'all in the next one.